Ladies and gentlemen, a powerful blessing is often preceded by inner conflict, uncertainty, or emotional agitation, signals that the old self is dying and a new state of consciousness is emerging. Behold, the blessing appears in the outer world. There is often a shaking within, not a physical quake, but a spiritual one, a tremor deep in the foundation of your being. You may feel restless, uncertain, or even emotionally overwhelmed, and you may wonder why such confusion would precede something beautiful. But the truth, the divine truth, is this: the soul often trembles right before its greatest expansion. When God is about to give you something big, something transformational, it doesn't arrive in silence. It announces itself first in the quiet chaos within. The feeling that things are changing, even if you cannot explain how or why, is often the first confirmation that your prayer has been heard and the answer is forming. You must understand that the law of consciousness governs all things, and consciousness moves not in straight lines but in spirals. It revisits old beliefs, challenges your attachments, and invites you to release who you thought you were so you can become who you are meant to be. This transition causes discomfort. The very cells of your mind begin to rearrange, forming a new pattern. Your thoughts shift, your emotions stir, and the life you once found comfort in suddenly feels too small for the person you are becoming. That is not coincidence, that is spiritual labor. The blessing is coming, but before it can arrive, you must grow in capacity to receive it. You cannot receive a palace while thinking like a servant. You cannot hold divine favor with hands full of fear. So the disturbance comes not to break you, but to prepare you. You may find yourself waking up in the middle of the night with your mind racing. You may lose interest in the things that once brought you joy. Certain people may fall away, not by conflict, but by quiet distance. All these are signs. Your frequency is changing, and when your frequency changes, the world must respond to you differently. This process, though invisible to the eye, is deeply real. It is the act of stepping into a new state of being, which is the only way a new reality can form. Remember, the outer world is only a mirror. You cannot see the new reflection until you have become the new self. The disturbance is not punishment. It is not confusion. It is the spiritual proof that God is active in your life. You prayed for growth. You asked for abundance. You envisioned something bigger, more meaningful, more powerful. But answers do not come wrapped in ease. They come dressed in transformation. And transformation is a holy fire. It burns away the unworthy, the unnecessary, the unaligned. That burning is what you feel when you're in the waiting room of God's promise. It is the purification of your vessel, not because you are unworthy, but because you are destined for something greater, and the current version of you cannot carry it yet. Do not run from this inner shaking. Do not numb it, suppress it, or call it failure. Sit with it, feel it, let it speak, because within it lies the message. Something big is coming, something sacred, something prepared for you, and you cannot enter that new space with the old mindset. So let the fear rise, let the doubts come, let the feelings move through you. They are not roadblocks, they are markers of motion. You are moving even when you think you are stuck. The stirring within you is God rearranging the soil before planting the blessing. The ground must be broken before the seed can be sown. Most people do not recognize this stage, so they retreat. They assume the discomfort is a sign to stop, when it is actually the signal to lean in. Imagine a woman in labor who misunderstands her contractions as danger instead of birth. The pain is not the end, it is the beginning. You're in labor spiritually. Your blessing is not late, it is being delivered. And the trembling you feel, that is the doorway opening inside you. That is the soul expanding to match the size of the miracle that is about to take form in your life. trust it. Don't fear it. The inner storm is not your undoing, it is your becoming. Every great promise from God is preceded by a shedding of the old. So when your emotions feel stretched, when the days feel strange, and when everything you thought was stable starts to shift, know this: you are on holy ground. The blessing is near, God is closer than ever, and the shaking inside of you is the whisper of heaven saying, "Prepare, I am about to give you something big." The spiritual journey is rarely linear. More often than not, when something divine is on its way to you, life appears to turn in the opposite direction. What you see with your natural eyes will often contradict what you have seen within. This is not a failure of faith, but rather a confirmation of spiritual law. The law of reversibility tells us that conditions which appear to move away from our desires are often the very bridge toward them. When God is about to give you something big, it often seems like everything is being taken away, but that appearance is illusion. It is the shifting of substance to accommodate the shape of your blessing. In the world of spirit, cause and effect are not fixed in one direction. If a certain state of being can create a certain condition in the outer world, then by spiritual law that condition, once created, can reproduce the internal state that gave it birth. In other words, if joy can lead to success, then success can lead to joy. If confidence leads to opportunity, then opportunity. And so, when you consciously enter into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, even if all evidence in your outer life suggests the opposite, you are invoking a force that must, by divine law, bring the physical world into alignment with your inner assumption. This law works both ways, and herein lies the challenge for most people. When something is coming into form, especially something big, the current world you occupy begins to resist the change. It is like moving furniture in a dark room. Everything feels out of place before it becomes organized. The conflict, the confusion, the contradictions, all are necessary for the new arrangement. God never places greatness on top of disorder. Instead, He allows the old order to crumble so the new can take root. So, when you pray, when you imagine, when you align yourself with a higher vision, do not be surprised if the first thing you encounter is resistance. That is the law at work. The reversal is part of the pattern. You ask for strength and you met with trials. You ask for clarity and suddenly confusion clouds your mind. You ask for abundance and lack seems to echo louder than ever. It is tempting in these moments to abandon the vision, but this is precisely the test. Will you hold your state even when the senses scream otherwise? Will you believe when there is nothing visible to support your belief? For faith is not rooted in sight. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And the law of reversibility respects this principle above all. It is important to realize that every spiritual desire creates a magnetic field. The moment you dwell in the assumption that your desire is fulfilled, you shift your internal vibration. That shift sends out a signal into the divine ether. But the energy that flows to rearrange the outer world must first break down what no longer fits. That is why problems increase before breakthroughs. That is why relationships strain before they evolve. That is why situations fall apart before they realign. The backward motion is not a denial, it is a divine recalibration. The delay is not denial, the storm is not the punishment. It is simply the undoing of the old to make space for the new. In this divine classroom, life teaches by contrast. Often you must feel the depth of lack before you appreciate abundance. You must see who you are not before you recognize who you are. The reversal brings up every limiting belief you've held. It shines a light on every doubt, every wound, every old story that no longer serves you. And this is grace in disguise. For God cannot fill a vessel that is already full. The emptying feels painful, but it is the act of spiritual preparation. You are being readied for something bigger. The old must fall so the new can rise. Do not fear when your world begins to tremble. That tremble is the evidence that your inner world has already shifted, and the outer must follow. It has no choice. The law does not lie. It does not falter. It only reflects. So when the world pushes against your dream, push back with stillness. When life appears to contradict your prayer, know that the contradiction is only temporary. The reversal is the doorway. Walk through it. Don't look back. Stay in the state, and the state will become your world. For every visible thing was once invisible. Every blessing you desire already exists, not in some far-off place, but in the present reality of your imagination. And as you continue to dwell in the feeling of already having it, the world will bend itself, reverse itself, and finally reveal what was always yours. There comes a moment in your journey where your attention shifts. Something within you becomes more real than anything you see around you. You are no longer persuaded by the outer world because you've touched a deeper truth within. This is the stage where persistent inner vision begins to take hold. It is not a fantasy or wishful thinking. It is a deliberate dwelling, a conscious decision to remain loyal to the unseen reality you have claimed as your own. When God is about to give you something big, one of the clearest signs is that you begin to live more in your imagination than in the limitations of your senses. You are pulled inward, not as an escape, but as a revelation of power. To persist in vision is not to deny the facts, it is to rise above them. It is to understand that what you see is not the cause of your life, but the result of previous states of consciousness. And if you desire something greater, then it is not the world that must change, it is you. The change begins in the inner sanctuary, in the quiet theater of imagination. There you see not as the world sees, but as God sees. You call those things that are not as though they were. You feel the joy before the event. You hear the conversation before it happens. You experience the moment before it takes shape. And because you are faithful in your inner world, the outer must bow to your conviction. This is not always an easy path. The world will demand your attention. It will ask you to look at the bank account, the diagnosis, the delay, the discouragement. It will tempt you to question what you know in your spirit. But the one who persists in vision does not waver. He returns again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not just once in meditation, but as a lifestyle. It becomes a dwelling place, a permanent address. Your senses may tell you otherwise, but within you are already home, already healed, already loved, already successful. You do not visit the state, you live in it. Persistent vision is not intensity, it is consistency. You may not always feel excitement, you may not always feel certain, but you choose, moment by moment, to return to the image. You assume it until it becomes natural. And when it becomes natural, it becomes real. That is the law. The state you dwell in long enough becomes your experience. So when the world seems slow to respond, you do not panic. You understand that everything visible is the delayed reflection of what is already settled within. It is in this invisible persistence that God's blessing prepares to enter your life. You are no longer reacting to the world, you are creating it. This is not arrogance, it is divine alignment. God gave you imagination not to fantasize, but to form. The world was made through imagination, and it is remade every time someone dares to believe more in the unseen. The person who lives in persistent vision has already stepped into the blessing, even if the calendar has not yet caught up. That person walks with calm, speaks with faith, and sees through the eyes of destiny. Others may not understand. They may call it delusion. They may say you're out of touch. But you are not out of touch. You are in touch with something higher. You are in touch with the truth that the world bends not to noise, not to force, but to silent, sustained inner conviction. The world reflects back the strongest signal, and when your inner signal is unwavering, the world begins to shift. This is why you must protect your vision. You must guard your thoughts. You must feed the dream daily with feeling, with faith, with love. For the moment you treat your inner vision as more real than the world around you, you've stepped into the same creative power by which all things were made. God moves through the quiet faith of those who persist, not those who demand, not those who panic, but those who return again and again to the vision without needing to see evidence, without needing to force the outcome, trusting that what has been impressed within must be expressed without. Persistent vision is a spiritual law, and when you feel that strong inner conviction, when you wake up thinking about it, when it feels more real than your current circumstances, do not dismiss that. That is not your imagination running wild. That is God announcing it is already done. Keep walking. Stay in the vision. The world will catch up, and when it does, you will know it was not the outer conditions that brought it to pass. It was your quiet persistence, your faithful imagination, your inner knowing. That is how the big blessings arrive. Not suddenly, but through the slow, steady power of someone who refused to let go of what they believed was already theirs. One of the most misunderstood signs that something big is on its way is separation. We often think of gain as being surrounded by more people, more opportunities, more praise. But in the divine order of things, elevation almost always begins with separation. God does not lift without first loosening. When He is preparing you for something greater, He will begin to pull you away from everything that no longer fits the future version of who you are becoming. This separation is not punishment. It is not rejection. It is preparation. It is God clearing the space, pruning the branches, and removing what cannot go where you are going. You may find yourself walking alone. Friends who once understood you may no longer resonate with your path. Environments that once felt like home begin to feel uncomfortable. Conversations that once entertained you now feel shallow. This is not a sign of arrogance, it is a sign of growth. Your spirit is outgrowing what your surroundings are still clinging to. And in this moment of divine discomfort, you are being given the opportunity to choose alignment over attachment. What many call loss is actually deliverance. God is removing you from what would delay your blessing. You do not need to understand it fully. You only need to trust the wisdom in the unfolding. Separation before elevation is not just physical, it's internal. Old beliefs begin to crumble. Your familiar identity starts to unravel. You may feel like you're losing yourself, but you're really shedding a version of yourself that was built on survival, approval, or illusion. It can be disorienting, even painful, but this spiritual shedding is essential. God cannot elevate what you pretend to be. He can only bless who you truly are. And often that truth is only revealed when everything else is stripped away. This is why you must learn to bless the silence, to honor the isolation. For in these hidden seasons, God is doing His deepest work. While it may look like you've been left behind, you are actually being hidden for a time, hidden to be healed, hidden to be taught, hidden to be fortified. It is in the quiet, in the loneliness, in the stillness that your roots grow deep. Do not rush back to the noise. Don't beg to stay in circles that are closing. When God begins to separate you, let Him. The hand that closes one door is the same hand that opens another, but the hallway between the two is often where your faith is refined. Most people run from separation because they equate it with failure. But spiritually, it is often the opposite. Before Abraham could become the father of nations, he had to leave his country, his people, and his father's household. Before Joseph could rule in Egypt, he had to be thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and imprisoned. Before Jesus could begin his ministry, he was led into the wilderness. Separation is not just common in divine preparation, it is essential. You cannot take Egypt into the promised land. You cannot take compromise into covenant. There is a leaving before the receiving, a breaking before the blessing. And so, when things begin to fall apart, don't always try to hold them together. When people walk away, let them. When you feel pulled inward, go there. Your elevation is not coming from more connections. It is coming from deeper connection with yourself and your Creator. You are being calibrated for something specific, something sacred, and not everything or everyone can come with you into that holy space. Discernment is required. Surrender is essential. The pain of separation is real, but so is its purpose. You will look back one day and thank God for what He removed. You will see clearly that had that person stayed, had that door opened, had that comfort remained, you would have settled for less than you were called to become. Separation is often mercy in disguise, a redirection with eternity in mind. What seems like a setback is actually a setup, not for immediate applause, but for eternal alignment. So don't fear the pruning, don't resent the pause. If God is taking things away, it is only to make room for what's been waiting for you all along. If the crowd is thinning, it's because your clarity is increasing. If the noise is quieting, it's because your spirit is awakening. Separation always comes before elevation, because the height God wants to take you to requires a lighter load. You are being lifted. You are being refined. You are being aligned with something higher than comfort. You are being aligned with calling. And when that elevation comes, not if, but when, it will make sense why the separation had to come first, because what God is about to give you is not ordinary, and you, beloved, were never meant to be ordinary either. There is a sacred point in the journey of manifestation where you no longer seek outward confirmation. The desire, though not yet materialized, feels complete within you. You do not chase, you do not beg, you do not ask repeatedly. Instead, you feel, you rest, you accept. This is the feeling of completion before arrival, and it is the truest sign that what you've asked for is already yours. It is not seen with the eyes, but it is known in the spirit. The moment you feel it fully, the moment you embody the end without needing external proof, that is the moment creation is sealed. The secret is not in striving or stressing, but in assuming the state of the wish fulfilled. When you can walk through your life and feel as if it is already done, you bring yourself into alignment with divine order. God does not respond to effort, He responds to faith. Not faith in words, but faith in being. When your inner world accepts the end result as already true, the outer world is compelled to organize itself around that truth. It cannot do otherwise, for the world is but a mirror, and it reflects not your desires, but your dominant state of consciousness. This is why the feeling of completion is so powerful. It tells heaven and earth that you are no longer waiting, you are knowing. You are no longer hoping, you are living as if the future has already arrived. And this does not mean you deny what you see. It means you no longer let what you see dictate what you believe. You walk through reality as one who has already received, because in the unseen realm you have. To feel the end is to release resistance. It is to trust the invisible process. It is to move from wanting into being. Most people pray from lack. They visualize from separation. They say one day and hopefully and if it's meant to be, but the one who understands the creative power of imagination knows that those words delay the very thing they wish to manifest. What you truly believe to be yours, you do not long for, you live from. You do not speak of it in the future tense, you embody it in the now. And here lies the beautiful paradox. When you feel the completion of your desire inwardly, you no longer crave its outer appearance. You are no longer desperate for proof, because the proof is within you. You feel the peace. You sense the joy. You walk with confidence. And in that calm knowing, the external must respond. It is law. It is spiritual mathematics. The outer must conform to the inner blueprint, and that blueprint is etched by feeling. This is why you must treat your inner world with sacred attention. Before anything shows up in your life, it first shows up in your imagination. And imagination is not passive, it is divine causation. To imagine vividly and to feel truthfully is to pray effectively. Prayer is not words whispered in desperation. It is the silent, steady acceptance that what you have imagined is already yours. That's why Jesus said, when you pray, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. Not when it appears, not when others confirm it, when you believe, when you feel. So when you begin to carry this sense of completion, do not be surprised if the outer world seems unchanged. It is simply catching up. Time is a bridge, not a barrier, and once the feeling is real within, the evidence is already on its way. You've shifted your dwelling place. You no longer live in lack, you live in abundance. You no longer live in fear, you live in fulfillment. That shift may be invisible to others, but it is undeniable to you. And eventually, it will be undeniable to everyone around you. The world may ask, why are you so calm? Why are you so sure? And your answer will not be pride, it will be presence. Because when you've touched the end in your spirit, no one can convince you it's not real. You've tasted it, you've walked in it, you've cried tears of joy over something no one else can see yet. And that's the proof. The feeling is the sign. When God is about to give you something big, He often lets you feel it before you hold it. So hold to that feeling, nurture it, return to it, dwell in it. Let it be your resting place. And as you live in the atmosphere of the already accomplished, the rest of the world will align, not because you forced it, but because you felt it. And what is felt with conviction must one day be seen with clarity. That is the law. That is the promise. That is how you know your blessing is near. You've already received it in your heart. And so, beloved, remember this. When God is about to give you something big, He whispers it to you first, not through words, but through signs of the unseen. He speaks in the silence, in the shifts, in the strange separations, and the quiet stirrings of your soul. The world may not understand the turbulence you feel, but heaven knows the preparation. You are being shaped, emptied, refined, not for punishment, but for promise. The pruning is proof of the harvest. Do not be dismayed when the old falls away. It is making room for what is sacred. Do not fear the solitude. It is there you learn the language of the Spirit. Do not run from the inner awakening. It is the hand of God turning you back to your true self. Let every delay remind you that timing is divine. Let every inner nudge remind you that what you feel is real. And let every quiet moment of surrender deepen your faith, not in what you see, but in who you are becoming. When the time is near, you will feel it first. You will feel the shift before the blessing shows up. You will feel the peace before the door opens. You will feel the end before you ever see the beginning. That is the mystery. That is the law. That is the power of imagination fused with faith. So live from the feeling. Trust the silence, rest in the unseen, walk as though you have already received. And know this, the moment you fully believe is the moment it begins. It is already done.